Spiritism in Mortal Online already has one of the strongest atmospheres of any magic school. It is the magic of ether world, souls, flux, rituals, death, and the boundary between worlds. Yet in everyday gameplay, a spiritist too often feels limited to opening ether portals, farming flux, or occasionally helping with resurrection. But Spiritism could become one of the most unusual and meaningful schools in the game. Not another damage school, not another collection of buffs, but a school of scouting, rescue, vengeance, soul hunting, and unique services that no other role in Mortal can provide. Below are ideas that could make the Spiritist a truly valuable class for solo players, dominators, beastmasters, guilds, caravans, bounty hunters, and ordinary groups heading into dangerous dungeons. Astral scouting through a living ritual. In the past, players could use the world of the dead for scouting, but that always felt wrong. Dying could become useful because it gave you information about the living world. Removing that approach made sense, but the idea of scouting through the spirit world should not be lost. It can return in a more fitting and atmospheric form. The Spiritist does not die. He remains alive, begins a deep ritual, leaves his body behind in the physical world, and temporarily sends his consciousness into ether world. In other words, he meditates between worlds, leaving his living body exposed while his spirit performs reconnaissance. That is where the balance comes from. You do not need to die in order to scout, but you still take a real risk. While your consciousness is in ether world, your physical body can be found and killed. The Spiritist should not be able to sit safely on a mountain and scout the entire continent for free. The farther his spirit travels away from the meditating body, the more spiritual energy is consumed over time. At a short distance, the ritual may be sustainable for a while, but as the Spiritist moves deeper into ether world and farther away from his physical body, the cost steadily rises. A scout traveling 500 meters away may lose only a small amount of energy each minute, while a scout traveling 1,000 meters away loses much more. The exact numbers can be balanced by the developers, but the principle should remain simple. Distance creates pressure. Once the Spiritist runs out of spiritual energy, the astral journey ends immediately and his consciousness returns to the body. This prevents the ritual from becoming unlimited map-wide surveillance. It turns it into a deliberate expedition. The Spiritist must decide how far to push into danger, how much information is worth the cost, and whether he can return before his energy is exhausted. Such a Spiritist could check a dangerous dungeon exit in advance, scout the road ahead of a caravan, inspect the area around a guild base, examine the approaches to a city, investigate a suspected ambush location, or explore the area around an ether portal. He should not see every player by name, and he should not turn the game into a radar, but he should be able to sense whether there is life, movement, and danger in that area. This would turn ether world into more than a place for gathering flux or traveling through portals. It would become a separate layer of reconnaissance where the Spiritist gathers the most valuable resource in Mortal: information. Astral scouting and spirit sight through creatures should be two clearly different tools. During living meditation, the spiritist can travel through etherworld on his own and sense the nearby physical world without needing animals or NPCs. This is the direct form of scouting, but its range is limited by the distance from his body and the growing energy cost of maintaining the astral journey. Spirit sight through creatures is a deeper and more expensive form of reconnaissance. It begins after the spiritist has already entered etherworld through an ether portal. From there, he can search for the spiritual presence of nearby creatures and attempt to inhabit one of them for a brief time. Not control it, not run around the map through it, not attack with it, and not use it as a free drone. He simply gains its vision. When the spiritist inhabits a creature, he finally sees the physical world in full color through that creature's eyes. He cannot move the creature, force it to turn, attack through it, or guide it toward a target. The animal or NPC continues following its own natural behavior. The spiritist can only look through its eyes and observe whatever happens to be around it. This vision should consume heavily spiritual energy. It is not meant to become permanent surveillance through one convenient animal. After a creature has been used for spirit sight, it receives a temporary spiritual exhaustion effect. For a significant period of time, perhaps similar to a criminal cooldown, no spiritist can use that exact creature as a viewing point again. That limitation keeps the mechanic fair. A spider near a dungeon entrance cannot become a permanent security camera, and one NPC cannot be repeatedly exploited by every spiritist in the world.
For example, the spiritist may find the spirit of a wolf near a road, a spider near the entrance to a cave, a bear in the forest, or a bird near the coast. He inhabits that creature and sees the world through its eyes. He can look around and spot players, horses, caravans, camps, or movement near a dungeon entrance. But the creature continues living its normal life. The spiritist cannot force it to walk, run, attack, or fly wherever he wants. He is only an observer. That is why this mechanic would not become an abuse. It is not a controllable magical drone. It is a rare opportunity to see the world through the eyes of a living creature that already happens to be where information is needed. This would give Spiritism a unique form of reconnaissance that no other magic school could offer. A one-time soul bond for a domination creature. This is one of the strongest possible ideas for Spiritism. For the owner of a domination creature, a pet is often much more than a mount. It may represent hours of searching, danger, money, effort, training, and protection. It had to be found, dominated, raised, kept alive, and taken through countless dangerous situations. When such a creature dies, the loss is far more painful than losing an ordinary horse. A spiritist should therefore be able to perform a special ritual in advance on one chosen creature. Not make it permanently bonded, not turn it into an immortal pet, and not give the owner permanent protection from death. It should be a one-time spiritual bond. After the ritual, the creature's soul is anchored to a special soul vessel. As long as that vessel exists, the creature's death does not become a final disappearance. If the creature dies, its soul does not vanish completely. It remains preserved inside the vessel as a single chance to be restored. However, the spiritist should not be able to resurrect the creature out of nothing, and he should not simply raise its old corpse. The preserved soul needs a living body to return to. For example, if a level 125 dominated spider dies, the owner must first find and dominate another spider of the same kind. It may be a lower-level spider, but it must be a living creature and a valid physical vessel. The spiritist can then perform the second ritual, placing the preserved soul of the old spider into the new body. The result is not a completely new animal. It is the return of the original creature's soul, identity, and developed potential inside a new living body of the same species. This makes the process meaningful. The owner still needs to go into the world, find another creature, dominate it, protect it, and bring it to the spiritist. The soul vessel saves what was valuable about the old animal, but it does not remove the work, danger, or cost of restoring it. After that, the owner must return to a spiritist for a separate resurrection ritual. Only then can the animal be restored. The service therefore has two stages. First, the spiritist prepares the creature for danger and creates a one-time spiritual insurance policy. Then, if the worst happens, he performs a second ritual and restores the pet through the soul vessel. After the resurrection, the bond is consumed. To gain that protection again, the owner must return to a spiritist and perform a new ritual. This is far more interesting than a system of permanently bonded animals. It does not make the creature permanently safe or remove risk from the world. It preserves the meaning of death while giving the owner one expensive chance to save something truly valuable. For that reason, this service could become one of the central professions within Spiritism. Calling back the soul of a fallen ally. In mortal, death does not always mean that a group has lost the fight. Sometimes allies reclaim the location of death. Sometimes they find the body. Sometimes the enemies have already left.
Sometimes a player dies deep inside a dungeon where the body can still be reached, but the soul is already far away in Etherworld. In that situation, a spiritist could become the group's true rescuer. He does not simply resurrect a body. He calls the soul of a fallen ally back to the place where that body lies. He restores the connection between soul and body, allowing the group to bring their companion back in the field instead of losing them simply because death separated the party between two worlds. This should not become an easy replacement for normal death. The group still needs to preserve the body, reclaim the dangerous area, protect the spiritist, and complete the ritual. But if they manage to buy time and hold the battlefield, they gain a chance to restore their ally without the entire expedition falling apart. This would be especially valuable in dungeons, sieges, large PvP battles, boss hunts, and dangerous expeditions. Situations where one death can break not only one player, but the entire operation. Spirit rescue, a state between life and death. This is not an ordinary heal, and it is not standard resurrection. While an ally is still alive, the spiritist performs a costly protective ritual on them. This is not something cast after the player has already fallen. It is preparation made before danger begins. If that protected player later receives lethal damage, they do not immediately die and depart into Etherworld. Their body falls to the ground, completely immobile, unable to fight, stand, cast, or escape. But for roughly 1 minute, the soul remains bound to the body. During that time, enemies cannot execute the player or force the soul out of the body. The fallen ally cannot act, but their companions can carry the body, drag it behind cover, remove it from the battlefield, or bring it back to a safer position. Most importantly, the player's equipment and inventory do not drop during this 1 minute state.
That is what gives the ritual real value. It does not turn the player into an active fighter, and it does not guarantee that the group will win the battle, but it gives the group a short, dramatic opportunity to rescue their companion before the death becomes final. At the end of the minute, the protected player awakens on their own without requiring a second ritual. The spiritist's role was to place the protection before combat, not to perform an emergency resurrection afterward. Because this effect can save both a life and a full equipment set, it should require valuable materials and have a meaningful cooldown. It should not be absurdly expensive or impossible to use, but it must be rare enough that players choose carefully when to prepare it and whom to protect. This is a powerful idea precisely because it does not erase the consequences of death. It creates a dramatic phase between defeat and final loss. The group sees that their companion has fallen, the enemies see that the loot can be taken, and the allies understand that they have 1 minute to carry the body away and bring their friend back. Spirit Ward, one eternal spiritual watcher. A normal alarm would be too minor an idea, but Spirit Ward could become something much more meaningful. A spiritist may have only one active ward, one single ward, but it does not disappear after a few minutes, does not require constant renewal, and is not limited by distance.
It can serve as a permanent spiritual watcher placed at an important point in the world, near a base, at a dungeon entrance, on a road, beside a camp, at a mountain pass, near a crossing, on a caravan route, or beside a hidden path. The ward does not reveal player names, does not show a map, does not give the exact size of a group, and does not turn the world into a radar. Its purpose is different. It reports when living beings cross a specific boundary. For example, the spiritist might receive a message that one person crossed the ward on foot. Later, several creatures pass through on horseback. Then movement appears again in the opposite direction. In this way, the ward does not simply say an enemy is nearby. It becomes something like a spiritual watchtower that records who crossed a specific route, in which direction, and by what means. This would be highly useful for guilds, but also valuable for solo players. A player could place it at the entrance of a dangerous dungeon and learn that people are regularly entering it. It could watch over a camp or a base. It could monitor a narrow route commonly used by gankers. Most importantly, the limit of one ward forces a meaningful choice. It is not a network of cameras across Nave. It is one important spiritual outpost that the spiritist truly commits to watching. Spirit wards should not become something that every spiritist can directly discover, dispel, or sabotage on demand. A spiritist should not simply see another spiritist's ward in Etherworld and remove it because they found it. Instead, the counterplay should come from territorial overlap. Every ward has an area of influence. If another spiritist places their own ward within that area, the older ward is disrupted and disappears. The new ward takes its place. This creates a natural struggle over important locations. Dungeon entrances, narrow passes, bridges, caravan routes, and city approaches would become popular ward locations. But that would not mean every spiritist in the world could monitor the same entrance forever. A ward placed directly at the obvious point may be constantly replaced by other spiritists.
The smarter choice may be to place the ward slightly away from the obvious route, at a less predictable crossing point, where another spiritist is less likely to establish their own influence. In this way, Spirit Ward becomes more than an alarm. It becomes a quiet, territorial game of information, positioning, and prediction.
Spirit contracts, permanent blessings from captured spirits.
Spirit contracts could become a true ritual profession built around the spirits of creatures. A spiritist may capture the spirit of almost any creature in Mortal Online: bears, wolves, spiders, snakes, horses, resars, lizard warriors, and many other animals, monsters, or humanoid NPCs. Every type of creature carries a different spiritual nature and therefore offers a different kind of blessing. The captured spirit can then be bound through a ritual to a player, an animal, or another valid living target. But each target can hold only one active spirit contract at a time. A player may have one spirit blessing, and their animal may have one separate spirit blessing, but neither can stack multiple contracts at once. This keeps the system meaningful. Players must choose which spirit matters most, instead of covering themselves and every creature with endless layers of buffs.
For example, the spirit of a bear could be used to place a guardian spirit blessing on a beastmaster's pet. The creature would gain a special spiritual protection and remain more resilient until its death.
A bear spirit may grant endurance, resilience, or a guardian-style protection. A wolf spirit may strengthen pursuit, awareness, or pack behavior. A spider or snake spirit may add a venomous effect or resistance to poison. A horse spirit may deepen the connection between rider and mount. Humanoid spirits could offer different benefits as well. The spirit of a resar might grant a constitution-related blessing, while the spirit of a lizard warrior could grant toughness, aggression resistance, or another trait that reflects its nature. The exact effects should be designed carefully by the developers, but the important idea is that every creature becomes spiritually valuable. Players would no longer hunt animals only for meat, hides, materials, or trophies. They could also hunt for the unique spiritual essence needed for a specific contract.
This does not necessarily need to be only a direct stat bonus. The spirit of a wolf could provide a thematic form of protection. The spirit of a spider could offer a connection to the pack or an instinct for danger. The spirit of a horse could strengthen the bond between a rider and their mount. The important part is that this creates a new profession and a real service economy. A beastmaster brings their bear to a spiritist. The spiritist acquires the necessary spirit, completes the ritual, and places a lasting blessing on the animal. As long as the bear lives, the blessing remains. When the bear dies, the blessing disappears, and the service must be purchased again. This would give animals more individuality, while giving spiritists a true ritual crafting specialization.
Spirit of the Merchant, hunting for lost wealth. In Etherworld, a spiritist should see more than the souls of creatures. They could also sense the spiritual trace of objects that were recently lost in the physical world, especially objects connected to human greed, fear, death, or sudden loss. For example, somewhere in the world there may be a bag full of valuable loot left behind after a battle. A player died. Their body was butchered, but some of the loot remained nearby. Or a caravan lost cargo. Or after a fight in the wilderness, a valuable bag lies in the grass, still undiscovered. While traveling in Etherworld, a spiritist could sense these places as unusual traces of wealth. Not see the exact contents of the bag, not receive coordinates, and not locate every item in the world. But notice that somewhere nearby there is an object carrying a strong spiritual imprint.
The spiritist must then return to the physical world and collect the loot in the ordinary way, carry it physically, risk the journey, possibly meet the people who are also searching for it, possibly arrive at an old battlefield where the killers are still nearby. This would give spiritism an unusual form of treasure hunting, not through maps and not through ordinary farming, but through the world of the dead and the traces of lost wealth. Spirit of Vengeance, the path to a killer.
Spirit of vengeance should be more than a vague trail left behind after a random death. It should allow a spiritist to investigate a specific murder and give meaningful information back to the victim. When a player is killed, their death leaves a clear spiritual event in Etherworld, even if the physical corpse has already been butchered, removed, or completely lost.
At the place of the murder, the spiritist can identify the name of the victim whose soul was taken there. This means the spiritist is not blindly investigating an anonymous corpse. He can discover who died, contact that player, and offer to track the people responsible. From that point, the spiritist begins a ritual of vengeance. He does not receive the killer's names on a map, and he does not see them directly in the physical world. But in Etherworld, he can see the unique spiritual trail of the souls that committed the murder.
The trail leads onward from the place of death. If the killer left on foot, the trail runs along the ground. If they rode away, it follows their route. If they passed through an ether portal, the trail leads to the point of transition. If they stop somewhere in the world, the trail grows brighter at the location of their current presence.
The spiritist is not following a random player-shaped ghost. He is following the exact spiritual imprint connected to that murder. Even if several people pass through the same location afterward, the trail of the killers remains distinct. When the trail eventually reaches the criminal's current area, the spiritist may not see their physical bodies directly, but he can know that the people responsible are present there. He can return to the victim with that information, lead a group toward the location, or sell the service of tracking down the murderers. This transforms spiritism into an investigative profession. The spiritist does not merely react to a corpse. He can identify the victim, reconstruct the crime, and help turn a random killing into a possible act of revenge.
The spiritist does not see the killer as an ordinary player model. He sees only their unique spiritual imprint. But when the trail reaches the place where the killer is currently standing, the spiritist understands one thing: they are here. This creates a real system for hunting criminals. Not simply, we were killed, that is unfortunate, but the ability to gather a group, hire a spiritist, read the place of the crime, and begin hunting the people responsible. This would give PK genuine counterplay inside the world game itself. Not reports, not forums, not external tools. A living world where crime leaves a trace and the people you killed have a chance to come back for you.
Spirit Trail, tracking a target after contact. Spirit of Vengeance is specifically for following a killer after a crime, but Spirit Trail could be a more universal and personal form of pursuit. If a spiritist has made contact with a target, saw them in combat, touched their blood, found their corpse, obtained an item that belonged to them for a long time, or participated in a confrontation with them, he can preserve that target's spiritual imprint. From then on, in Etherworld, he can see that target's trail and follow their route. Not the player directly, not every person nearby, and not a full radar. Only the trail of one specific soul with whom there has already been a real interaction in the physical world. This creates many interesting situations.
A thief steals something valuable and escapes. A spiritist can work with the stolen item and try to find the thief's trail. An enemy survives a battle and flees. The group can hire a spiritist to locate them. A caravan is attacked, but the killers disappear. One of them leaves blood, a fallen ally, or some other trace behind, and now they can be pursued. This should not be permanent or perfectly accurate, but the idea itself is powerful. When you enter a conflict with someone immortal, that conflict does not always end the moment they disappear over the horizon. Soul prison, a prison for the souls of killers. This may be the most unusual and atmospheric idea for Spiritism. When a criminal dies, their body can be looted, butchered, or left in the world, but their soul departs into ether world, and normally that is where the story ends. A spiritist could intervene at exactly that moment.
There is another unusual possibility. The captured soul should not simply experience a black screen while waiting for its fate. If a specific spiritist captures a criminal soul inside a soul prison, that imprisoned player remains connected to the game. They can still see the game chat and remain aware of what is happening, but their vision is limited to what the captor sees in Etherworld. As long as the spiritist is traveling through Etherworld, the imprisoned soul sees the same ghostly world through the spiritist's perspective. The prisoner becomes a conscious captive, unable to act freely, but still forced to witness the journey of the person who captured them. This creates a strange and powerful dynamic. The spiritist does not merely carry a trophy, he carries a living witness, and in a way, a hostage soul. Eventually, the captured soul must be processed somehow, released, transferred to an authority, exchanged for a bounty, used in a future justice system, or placed into a more permanent form of soul prison. The final consequences should be left for the developers to decide, but the core idea is clear. The spiritist becomes a hunter of criminal souls, and the criminal does not simply vanish into a black screen. Their fate becomes part of the living world of Mortal Online.
If they helped kill the killer or arrived near the body shortly after death, they could capture the killer's soul inside a special vessel, a soul prison. This should not become a system where players are permanently trapped and prevented from playing. The goal is not to build literal in-game prisons or imprison a person forever. The point is that the criminal's soul becomes evidence, a trophy, and a unique object within mortal's world. The vessel could be sold, given to a guild, handed over to city authorities, used in a future bounty system, exchanged for a reward, or become part of a future justice mechanic should the developers ever choose to expand one. What exactly happens to the soul inside the soul prison afterward should remain for the developers to decide. The foundation is what matters. The spiritist becomes a hunter not only of bodies and loot, but of criminal souls. He does not merely defeat a killer. He can take that killer's soul as proof that the crime had consequences. Spirit Bazaar, the spiritist service economy. None of these mechanics should exist only as personal conveniences for the mage. They should create a real service economy.
A spiritist becomes someone players seek out before a dangerous expedition, after losing a pet, after the death of an ally, before a caravan journey, after a PK attack, or before a siege. A dominator comes to create a one-time soul bond for a rare creature. After the pet dies, they return to perform the resurrection ritual. A beastmaster comes to receive a lasting blessing from the spirit of a bear, wolf, spider, or another creature. A guild hires a spiritist to place one important spirit ward on a route that must be watched.
A group searches for a spiritist after a difficult battle in order to call the soul of a fallen ally back to their body. Players are murdered on a road, and they seek a spiritist capable of invoking spirit of vengeance and leading them along the killer's trail. Bounty hunters hire a spiritist to locate a target through spirit trail, then capture that target's soul in a soul prison. At that point, Spiritism stops being a school trained only for personal utility. It becomes an independent profession. A profession with demand, reputation, returning clients, rare services, and genuine reasons for player-to-player trade. Conclusion. In this form, Spiritism becomes a school that governs consequences rather than damage. It provides information before battle through astral scouting and spirit sight through creatures. It saves what is valuable after battle through one-time soul bonds for pets, calling back fallen allies and creating a state between life and death. It protects territory through a single permanent spirit ward. It creates an economy through spirit blessings, the search for lost wealth, and specialized player services. And it gives a response to senseless murder through spirit of vengeance, spirit trail, and soul prison. Such a spiritist does not replace a warrior, a mage, a healer, a beastmaster, or a scout. He does what none of them can do. He preserves what is almost lost. He finds what others cannot see. And he does not allow someone who has committed murder to simply disappear from the world without a trace.